It's been 4 years since our family moved to Portugal. And personally, I love it. I love the sun. I love the food. I love the weather. I love the lifestyle. I just love being in Portugal. And I think a lot of people think about, hey, would I be happier if I moved somewhere else? Would I feel more authentic? What would it be like to be in those shoes for a while? And that's the whole idea of why people move to completely different countries. Because quite frankly, it's not always easy. There's a lot of technical stuff. There's a lot of admin stuff that you have to go through. And we certainly made our mistakes in that process. But let me just show you something right here. Kimchi, homemade kimchi. Just made that. It's great. A lot of people think, hey, what would it be like? Like, I feel like life is slipping by with me just living in the same place, in the same town, in the same city all the time. I think that's an impetus for a lot of people to be like, yeah, what would it be like to live in Europe? What would it be like to live in Portugal? Is that what I'm really destined to do? Well, in this video, I'm gonna explain some of the ways that would have been a whole lot easier if we knew going into it how to make that transition happen, and some of the admin and the technical stuff. This is gonna simplify a lot of that for you. So if that's on your mind, something that you've always wanted to consider, I got some great info for you. Let's jump into the video. I think people should be able to live where they want, not have restrictions, but you will have to document at some point where you've been and how long you've been there. And it's not as straightforward as you think. So when we moved to Portugal from Canada, we didn't skip around to 40 countries. More complicated can get if you do that. And sometimes I think you just want to act first and you think you're just going to figure things out later. And to be honest, that leads to stress. Governments want, or maybe I should say demand, a single source of truth. And at some point, you're going to have to document that, particularly if you're getting close to, you want to stay, let's say, in the Schengen area for the maximum amount of time. So the burden of proof is on you to do that. And the governments don't provide good tools for you to track that. And particularly if you're going to multiple countries, it can get very complicated because then you're patching together different plane tickets and maybe bus tickets and train tickets and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to show you what this app does and why it can save you a whole lot of stress. So this is the Flamingo Great app for global travel. And we're going to get into it in a second, but this will just simplify your travels. You can track, monitor your trips. We'll get into the auto recording. It will auto record where you've been. And of course, there's the Schengen calculator, so you can comply with the 90 to 180 day rules in Europe, which is really important. So this is the Flamingo Compliance app. And what it does very cleanly is track your tax residency, your visa status, your domicile status, and it frees you up to be creative. And it's actually really well designed and visually appealing. And I think that's really important. It is on iOS. It's not on Android, and you're going to get a link to the app. There's a link in the description. What you want to do is install it, and then this becomes your travel buddy. There are 3 ways to track your location. One of them is set your location as always allow. And when you do this, and the reason you might want to do this is because it can track your movements in the background, even when the app is closed. So you don't need to open the app. You don't need to do anything. It just happens automatically. And that's what I would recommend. So they do recommend opening the app every month just to make sure the tracking is going and working well. You can also set it to manual entry, and I'll show you that a little bit later in the app where you can manually set, what you've done. Now, this is also good if you've already started your expat journey and you need to backdate stuff and figure stuff out, and then you have everything very organized and clean. And it can also do photo scanning. So it can look at all your photos and look at the metadata, and it can piece together where you were based on that, which can be very helpful if you just want to not deal with a lot of the manual entry. And I wanted to talk about pricing because I thought this would be a lot more expensive than it is. But if you have a single visa or residency permit for like students, it's 22 euros a year. That's it. And so that is really helpful. You can export the reports. Then there's resident for expats and snowbirds. You can track up to 2 tax residencies. And this is the less than 50 euros or pounds £50 per year. So very reasonable. And then there's the Globetrotter, which is less than £100 annually. And this does unlimited tax trackers for people that just want to be able to do whatever they want with it. But ultimately, this is a very small fee for what it does, because this is something that you're at some point going to look back and say, yeah, I wish I had that. That would have been worth it. It's going to save me a whole lot of stress. Here is the Flamingo app, and this is only available for iOS right now. This is the app. I've actually installed it and got it started. So you can go here and you can have a free plan when you can get a free trial when you get there. You can customize the name for your travel reports, put in the notice. When you load the app here, it senses that I've already allowed the location data. So it's sensing that I'm in Portugal and it's got a rough estimate of where I am. And so what I like about this is you can see in the top your trial date, when that expires. And if I click on here, it says the Schengen area. So it says I have 89 days left. Keep in mind that your last day. And so that will do that. So there's two tabs here at the bottom. There's the trackers, which has the city, tax, residency, domicile, and then the visited countries, your trackers. So you can toggle between those, you can filter from those and all that stuff. So where it starts here is you can add your citizenship, and let's just put Canada, and then it can put the dates, last day of citizenship. And so I can put that in. You can even put in your passport number, which is great to have on hand. And you can see the date of issue and the date of expiry. So one of the things is that when it's going to expire, you will see that and get a warning. You can see that they're very good at warning you about that. You can also add the photos of the document and just take a picture. So you can also add the photos of the document and just take a photo of your passport for easy record keeping. And that's definitely something that I would recommend. So now that I've added that, it can see the visa requirements. So from this, it can see that I have 186 visa-free countries I can travel to without a visa and 46 that are required. So this really helps with that. If I was business, you can see how that number changes, and just transit, you can see that. So these are the ones that would require a visa. So if I wanted to go to Venezuela, it will show me that I need a visa, and there's a link to the entry requirements. So this is for all the countries. This is just awesome, right? So visa free, it shows I can visit all these countries visa free. And for how long? If I wanted to go to Belarus, it's only 30 days. If I wanted to go to Georgia, it's 365 days. So there's all these different options for that. So let's say I wanted to visit Croatia. I've heard that's nice. Visa not required. You can see I can stay for 90 days for business or tourism and just book my flight and not have to have any kind of problem with that. So the timeline is going to be the main source of truth here that you're going to build. And you can scan your photo library, which will automatically take your travel timeline through photo geotags. Now, I'm not going to do that because I've basically just been in Portugal, but I can add my stays. So let's say that I went back to Canada, and let's say I arrived in Canada on December 8th, and then I left on January 2nd. Okay. So this crosses like a calendar year. That makes things hard to calculate. So it tells me what date it is. I can select the specific time of my flight, or you can mark a country or state as in transit. What that means is you're just going through. So sometimes if you have a long layover, you don't really need to do that. So you can put Canada visit, and then I can add different places that I visit, add some travel notes, and then your entry documents. I'll just put passport, and I'll just save for leisure. And so I can save and close. Okay, so now I've got that. And because I've added that, it has this undefined period, because after January 2nd, which is when I said I left Canada, it's undefined. So this gives me that if I'm trying to reconstruct, it will make it easier for me to put that into place. That, I think, really makes it so much easier for you. So the timeline's in there. You can see here, I've got 2 timeline entries, and I can see my visited countries here, and it will say 27 days travel. So this is very easy for me to understand. So these are the different trackers. They also have your domicile tracker. So this is your home country. So let's put Canada, and then your tax year start and your threshold, right? So this is the minimum number of days you must be present in a jurisdiction to be considered domiciled for tax or legal purposes. So let's say you're a snowbird and you go down to the States. This would be very helpful. And you can basically just track how many days you can be in the States, and you're going to get a countdown that will show you how to do that. For the Schengen area, it says here that I have 98 days permitted. And this is based on what the information that I provided was. So if I add a timeline and say I was at a country, let's say I was in Austria, from here until there, and I'll save and close. Now it's got that area. And let's just add, let's say I went to Texas for the rest of it. So now it's got this history of how many days I was in Texas, how long I was in Austria, the Canada visit, all that kind of stuff. And so things really make more sense here. 90 days travel. These are my trackers here. So I can look at all those. All right, so let's go back to the dashboard. So in the Schengen area, because I put in that I visited Austria, I'm down to 63 permitted days, right, from that whole area. So that's important as well. Now you can have, this is important as well. So tax residency tracker. So let's say I'm a tax resident of Portugal, and then I can put in the dates here of when to start, and then the threshold of the minimum number of days I need to be present to be considered a tax resident of Portugal. Then I could put that in there so I can keep track of that. My permanent residency for long-term visas, I can put that in, as well as documents. And this, I think, really makes a lot of sense, because if you actually put in your documents that show that and put photos of that, you just have everything on your phone, and it makes things really clean. So short-term visas going to be coming soon. And then a country and state tracker you can put in as well. But one thing that I did want to show you was the city tax residency. So in some states, in some cities, you actually have to track your work days, not weekends, but in a US city for income tax purposes. And this is only in New York City for right now, but expected to be rolling out soon. Nothing is uncomplicated in the States. And there's a lot of people that do want to move. Let's say I was in New York from 5th until, what was this? To the 20th, and exclude holidays and weekends. So now I've added the tracker. And so it's got all that information here. Now, one of the best things about this as well is you can download the report. So you can download it in whatever format that you want. Current period, you could do the previous period, 2 years prior, and you can toggle all these on or off. Let's just put January 1st to the date, and I can just have this whole report. It will create this report for me. Now you need to be subscribed in order to get the report. And once you can do that, you can have multiple reports. This whole thing will just simplify your process, particularly I think for people traveling in Europe, because of the Schengen rules, which is very common for expats to have to deal with. So definitely take a look at this app. I think it just simplifies everything. It's got a nice, and I think at the end of the day, you do need to track this stuff, and most people just don't think that they need to, but you really do, because it's very easy to overstay in the Schengen area, particularly if you're going to multiple countries. If you're taking different routes of travel, you may think, that you're okay, but you don't want to get into trouble. This will be able to warn you about that. So all in all, this will simplify your life if you travel to multiple countries consistently and you stay for more than a couple of weeks. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to provide documentation to your original country, maybe your new country, and you're going to forget. Months can slip by saying, oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to get that. And it's kind of like passports. So we're a family of four members in the passport. Guess what? Each passport expiry date is completely different. It makes it very challenging. Some of us have multiple passports, and I think we have 5-year passports, but they don't like you to fly on the last 6 months. It can be challenging to renew if you're overseas. It can be more expensive to renew. Flamingo Compliance simplifies life so that you can focus on things that matter. And maybe that's for you, seeing as many countries as you possibly can. Maybe that's like us, trying out a brand new country and just falling in love with where you are at this new place. Regardless, this is a gem product. It's going to make your travel of life frictionless. So check it out. At the end of the day, there's going to come a time where you're going to be like, yeah, I wish we had done that. And I think for the price, it makes a ton of sense. Anyhow, that's just my take on it, but check it out for yourself. There is a free trial. Put a link in the description and go try that out yourself.